something very ominous about the lightning and thunder while we talk about tax sale. Good morning. Chrystene from the collector's office. I know most of the faces in here, but I'm going to introduce myself anyway because that's what Annalise told me to do. Alan was asked to come in and speak this morning about the 2025 tax sale, which means I am here. A voluntold kind of situation, you know?
No.
This entire tax sale thing is something that I find super interesting, but probably not something that anyone else cares about. So before I get into big details about the 2025 tax sale, to define it, for those of you who are not aware, the tax sale is a public auction for the purchase of tax liens against a property that owes 2 or more years of delinquent taxes. Careful wording there, tax liens, not deeds. We don't sell properties directly. We sell liens that can become deeds if plus dot the I's, cross the T's, all of that. The purpose of this whole process is to enforce the payment of real estate taxes. These are the taxes that go to pay for our schools and roads and bridges and our salaries and all of that jazz, so it matters to us. It's a super fun, complicated process. At any point during the year, we are on several points of this same timeline. We are at the day of sale, just after it for 2025. We are in the deed issue period for 2024. And we are in the purple distribution surplus period for 2023, which just means I get to stay busy year round. Anytime you're dealing with tax sale stuff, you're going to hear us repeat the same few phrases again and again, speaking to the public, speaking to the bidders involved. And those things are super repetitive, but very important. Number one, we don't sell deeds. We sell liens. You will not get a deed. You are not buying a house. You are buying a lien. Number two, if you have questions about that process, I don't know. I'm not an attorney, and neither is Alan or anyone else in my office. Number three, if you purchase an absolutely pristine toxic waste pit full of endangered beetles, you will be the proud owner of a toxic waste pit full of endangered beetles. It is an as-is sale, and I cannot protect you from any potential liabilities. If you fail to follow the law or listen to me, you may lose money. But ultimately, it all comes down to the same point of talk to an attorney. Do not jump into this blind. Make good choices. If you go through all of that and you still choose to offer a bid at the sale, there's kind of two ways that can end up. Number one, a property can be redeemed, meaning that the owner, a lien holder, an occupant, whatever, pays the back taxes and releases the purchase certificate. The bidder gets their money back, the owner keeps their property, everybody goes home happy. Number two, if nobody redeems the property, the bidder can apply for a deed. Again, that's a complicated process. They have to meet all of these requirements, but if they get a deed, they become the owner, and I assume they go home happy. There's actually a secret third option, which only would occur if nobody does anything that they were supposed to do. No one redeems, nobody requests a deed. It gets released and basically just closes the tax sale. And then it shows up again in the next couple of years. In context, to put the odds of actually getting a property into perspective, this is the record of all certificates sold and what happened to them after the sale since 2006. So this green bit is a number of redeemed properties. Any given year, we have anywhere from 50 to 60% of the properties that are redeemed. This last year, we actually had 75% of properties that are redeemed. Anywhere from 30 to 40% receive a deed. This last year, again, really weirdly small percent, but typically it's closer to 30 to 40%. The other 10 to 20% are the people who dropped the ball and lost out. To go into specifically 2025, we are looking at 113 properties that were offered, 82 certificates that were sold, and $1,100,000 plus that were collected. Before anyone gets super impressed by that number, keep in mind that for this year specifically, that is 80% surplus, meaning that's not taxes. We don't keep that money. Well, I mean, Justin holds on to it for a little while, but he doesn't get to keep it forever either. On average, we sell about 60% of the properties that we offer, and then about 30% of those get a deed. I'm not doing math, but it is a small percent that actually end up being fully sold at the property. If you're looking at this chart, you may notice a weird ghost line right before everything went bananas up at the top. That is 2020. Y'all should remember 2020. That year we did not have a tax sale due to the ongoing stuff. Which means that the year after that, as we expected, we had a much larger sale than average. That's not the crazy high line that you're seeing, though. The 2021 sale for the amount of money of the number of properties offered, it's higher, but not crazy. It did show a sudden jump in the amount of money bid. Whether that was because more people were interested in investing and the real estate market was just bananas or the direction changed, I don't fully know, but it did make a huge sudden jump and it has stayed up there ever since. Looking at all of this, 2025 kind of falls in the middle, more average than anything, nothing exceptional. It wasn't before the sale, at least. On average, we have about 50% of our properties that get paid off before August 1st, and the other 50 happen from August to the tax sale day. That's what we're used to seeing. That's what I'm used to adjusting to. This year, instead, that did not happen. And instead, 30% paid before the sale, and the other 70 did not pay, not just after August 1st, but actually less than 10 days before the sale. For perspective on that, this is a chart showing all of the pre-sale numbers from the last 5 years. As you will notice, there is a giant orange line that looks very ominous and threatening. This year started out in a bad place, just really high numbers, and it did not get better for a really long time. That chart cuts off at August 17th. That is 8 days before the tax sale. At which point, it dropped down to a totally normal number, and I felt like all of my stress had been for no good reason whatsoever. In conclusion, I was really tired and got stressed out for no good reason. Everything came out perfectly. So if you have any questions or want to learn more about the tax sale process from the perspective of a bidder, the QR code at the top of the slide here does lead you to my super fun and exciting tax sale manual. Alternatively, I'm also standing here and happy to ask questions, answer questions.
Can you go back to the last slide
Probably.
that shows the after the big drop? So does that drop represent delinquent property owners that came in and at least paid one of the 2 years to get?
These are people who paid all of the taxes. The
Okay.
1 year thing that you're talking
Okay.
about actually cuts off in May when the list is created.
Okay.
So that's where this chart starts, is after that period is
Okay,
closed.
okay, so that large drop is just a bunch of people, a bunch of property owners coming in and getting caught up.
Over 400 parcels in 8 days. Well, 5 days, because 2 of those were a weekend. Yes,
Does
sir.
that put a strain on your office?
Yes, sir.
And can you just talk a little bit about how that affects the people working the desks and the front lines?
So for 2025, this last 2 weeks, for whatever cause, we also had more than half of the redemptions from the prior year happened in August. Most of the tax sale stuff goes through me, and I'm able to get help and delegate to people. But when it all comes at a crunch like that, I get super overwhelmed. And so it put a lot of things into a standstill. I know the cashiers were collecting a lot of money. That makes it harder for them to balance. That's something we're used to. We can handle that. But the more complicated things like redemptions that are a legal process, on top of processing the incoming sale, the new certificates, the deeds, all of that, it just puts a big strain on myself and Alan just for the time it takes and the care and attention it takes. Debbie and Cindy also work with us to audit our records to make sure that everything comes out clear. And when I can't get things to them quickly, they can't get them back to me quickly, everything else goes slow. So it's an adventure. We made it through, though. Yes, ma'am.
How long is it before they can step foot on that property if they buy it?
There's a 1-year period. Following the tax sale, they have 1 full year before they can actually request a deed and become owners of the property. So if that does require, of course, that they do the proper steps to request a deed. If they fail to do that, it's even longer. But it is a 1 full year absolute right to redeem the property following the tax sale. The owner has the absolute right to redeem the property.
And if they don't,
If the owner doesn't redeem the property, if they do not redeem the property, then the bidder can request a deed.
and do we issue that deed?
I do issue that deed. The collector's office does. Does anyone else have super exciting questions about this exceptional and fun process that is definitely not boring to anyone else?
I have a question. Are a majority of these properties that are fully paid off, or do mortgage holders come in and try to make good on the tax burden and during a foreclosure process or something like that? How does that differ? How does a fully paid off property differ from a mortgage or a property that has a mortgage?
Now this year was exceptional in a lot of ways. There was one very large company that had around 200 parcels on the sale. All of those had deeds of trust on them. They had a lender associated. That's special circumstances. I'm going to put that one to the side. Ignoring that one, we still had a higher rate of mortgagers this year than normal. Whether it was just processing more foreclosures in the market or what happened, I'm not entirely sure. Generally speaking, properties that have a loan associated with them, the taxes are tied into it through escrow as part of the loan. The lender wants to guarantee that the county never gets in the way of them and the property. So they're obliged to make sure those taxes get paid. When it doesn't happen, when we get involved, they can risk their entire claim to the property. So they do tend to intervene before it even crosses my radar. A lot of these properties are paid off. They're owned free and clear. There's no bank encumbrance. A lot of times they're abandoned properties or ones that cousin Jimmy thought Aunt Belle was taking care of, but she thought her sister Lulu was taking care of, and it's just gotten dropped. And even more of them are abandoned or otherwise useless properties. The ones that are occupied rarely make it to sale, proportionately speaking. Yes, sir.
Do you have some properties that are just constantly in the sales? I hope they realize, oh, now I realize.
Yes, sir.
Tax on this and keep this, so it just runs right back through. Does it happen?
Yeah, we do have more than a couple of properties that we refer to as frequent flyers that I know by name and description and address. These properties often are not worth the tax amount, or at least not the effort that somebody would have to put in to become the owner of that property. They're the end of a cul-de-sac or common area that's no longer cared for. Things like that that slip between the cracks, the end of an alleyway that was vacated by the city 10 years ago. These little pieces get dropped off, and while we do our best to clean them up, there's a lot of them and not a lot of us. There's a few different ways that the county can take care of them, and I know that Mr. Icet has worked with me to get several of them resolved, but it's an ongoing process that requires more involvement than just the collector's office. Or they just keep going in circles around and around for the rest of forever. Anything from you, Mr. Icet?
Sure. Thank you everybody for coming. Good job, Chrystene. If you're interested, the tax sale is a public event. You don't have to register. You can just show up in this room at 10 o'clock on the 4th Monday of August and watch what happens. So it is open to the public. If you do want to be a bidder, there is a registration process because my office has to ensure that you meet all the qualifications required through state statute to be a bidder, which is one, you cannot be delinquent on your taxes. If you are not going to be registered as a bidder. To touch on, I think, Christian, you asked this question. So we get into some really unusual situations, as Chrystene alluded to. We have one this year whereby, well, let me back up. There are other parties that can have an interest in the property, one being a bank. They don't want it to go through tax sale, and then they lose, in effect, their lien. All they could get is the surplus. The other, which is really interesting, is the city of Springfield. We had one parcel up for sale, and the neighbor bought it. And the neighbor wanted to put up a fence. And the city said, no, that you have to pay the lien. And there's a nuisance lien, I think like $5,000,
Are
something
you
like
talking
that.
about Hudson Hoffman?
I don't know the name, but
Is it the post-third sale that we just did?
it's there.
The liens on that one were over $25,000.
So the city of Springfield also has an interest in these parcels because if they go through the tax sale and a collector's deed is issued, their city liens are null and void. So it's not unusual, the city will actually come in and redeem a property to keep their nuisance lien or whatever the lien may be active on the parcel. Which is always an interesting thing because it's not, I scratch my head, it's not unusual that the lien is worth much more, well, not much more than the parcel, but no one would buy that parcel with that lien hanging around their neck.
This
What-
property that he's describing, the tax bill due, including the special assessments from the city, was around $30,000 for an empty lot. Even on the south side in the richest neighborhood, that's not generally how a lot would be priced. That's still incredibly high.
Just one of those interesting nuances. There are other interested parties in some of these that they don't want a collector's deed to be issued, but as I said, it's a very interesting process. It's an interesting crowd that shows up. People, I give about a 15-minute spiel on watch outs and things to be aware of. There are people who show up, they think this is a get rich quick scheme, and it is not. We've had people, as Chrystene alluded to, buy something other than what they thought they were buying. One 3 years ago, one of our regulars, 3 or 4 years ago, one of our regulars, and he knows he should know what he's doing.
He did.
Yeah, well, I don't know, at the end of the day, I don't think he did. He thought he was buying a home, and you need to do your due diligence, legal description. We have our service, Civic Source. You can go to their website, and it gives all sorts of details. You go to the assessor's office, look for the legal description. He thought he was bidding on a house, a property with a house. What he was actually bidding on was the driveway adjacent to the house, and he bought a driveway. I think it was $10,000. Nice driveway. So there, as I said, it's not a get rich quick. It is a caveat into it. Need to buyer beware, and if you're interested, if you want to participate, you do need to do your homework. And if you know what you're doing, it's not difficult. My office is more than happy to help. I'm sure the assessor's office will give guidance on how to verify what this parcel is, location, and line. So every year, every county in Missouri, if you have a property, in some counties, there's a little bit of variety. Counties do things differently. Greene County is a 2-year county, which means if you're 2 years delinquent, your real estate parcel goes to tax sale. Some counties you'd be delinquent 1 year, others you could be delinquent 3 years. So depending on the county, it's a 1, 2, or 3 year, which triggers tax sale. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about the difference between the normal tax sale for 2-year delinquent and the third offer
Post-third.
or the post-third?
So statutorily, there are different categories of tax sale. The first and second time that a property is offered, normal. Nothing crazy, nothing weird, 1-year redemption period, you can request a deed, blah, blah, blah. The third time that it is offered, when no bid has been given at the prior 2 sales that were consecutive. That third time, it has a special redemption period that is shortened to only 90 days, meaning that you can get a deed 90 days after the sale, after you've done all of your requirements, just like anyone else, just on a shorter timeline. If nobody bids at the third offer, meaning that it has now been offered at 3 consecutive sale with no bid given, it qualifies for something that we refer to as a post-third offer sale. There's a few different things that go into that, but ultimately in Greene County, what it means is that the collector can sell those properties at any time for whatever amount he deems appropriate. It is not subject to the restrictions of 4th Monday in August. It is not subject to the amount of taxes owed.
How often does that happen?
Directly following a sale, like this year, all of the new ones that became post-third properties this year are already gone at maybe half a dozen. But other than that, the properties that remain on that list for any amount of time are ones that are correctly not being purchased. There's a reason nobody has bought them.
So generally, the statutes and the Missouri Constitution wants to protect property owners. No one wants someone to lose their property. As Chrystene said, the first 2 years are the same. You go to that third time it's offered, instead of a 1-year absolute right of redemption by the owner or interested parties, it drops to 90 days. So more people tend to be interested in a 90-day process because the bidder, whatever they bid, say 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, that money is sitting for a year if the property owner doesn't redeem. So your money is parked somewhere else, and so there's that risk of you won't get that deed. So the third year is a lot quicker than post third. No interest in the parcel, so the intent is to put that property back on the tax rolls and start collecting real estate taxes again.
If we had a property that was, doing that cycle thing and it wasn't because of a lien from the city of Springfield or something like that, it's just not worth the taxes being paid. Does that ever cause us to then go through, like some sort of a reassessment process so the tax would be lower, maybe to incentivize somebody to keep the property?
Would you be surprised if I told you I had a binder about this?
No.
Well,
No, so with those properties, we do identify them when we can. And it's one of my, as soon as I have the time to get to it, projects where they can be brought to the commission for reevaluation. But a big thing with that is the same way that Alan can sell those at any time for any amount, is that they can become the property of the county trustee, who can then do the same thing with more discretion than Alan has. So that is an option that we can work with. But again, that involves getting several offices to cooperate all at the same time, and me actually getting everything together beforehand. But in that case, we could offer say it's a 5-foot strip adjoining someone's property, reach out to that homeowner and say, hey buddy, if you'll pay the recording fee, we'll put this as part of your property now. You can have this 10 feet that you've been taking care of for the last 30 years and you didn't even know wasn't a part of your property. At least that's the goal with it, so that I don't have to see them again.
when you retire and come back on contract labor, that's what you're doing.
Probably.
You mentioned that there is like, if the property isn't redeemed and if the person who purchased the tax lien didn't follow all the requirements to be able to get a collector's, what happens to the money that they initially paid for, on the bid if they didn't meet the requirements to get the collector's certificate?
So if a certificate is released, meaning no redemption was given, no collector's deed was issued, 18 months have passed since the sale purchase certificate is void. If we reach that point, the taxes that were paid as part of the bid have already been dispersed, distributed to the districts as any other tax would be. Anything in excess of those taxes is what we refer to as surplus. Surplus is held by the treasurer's office until it is distributed, meaning either as part of a redemption, when somebody pays off the taxes before this period and the bidder gets their money back, the redemption gets that surplus and pays it back to the bidder. If a deed is issued and somebody loses their claim or their right to the property, that surplus can be distributed to them at request in a 90-day window following the expiration of the redemption period. Recently, we've made strides along with the commission office to update and correct that process so that it is more approachable and more friendly for people to engage with. But in large part, when it reaches the point that you're talking about, Annalise, with the property being fully released, nobody lost their claim. So surplus can only be distributed to former lien holders or interested parties. If you didn't lose your claim, that surplus cannot be distributed to you. What happens is that after a period of 5 years, do we do 5 years?
For the ADA ones, yeah. Between 2 and 5.
After 5 years or so, we release those funds to the general school fund. So it becomes available to the schools. The county doesn't directly benefit from it. We have no skin in that game, but that is where it ends up if nothing else happens to it.
So if the person who purchased it at the sale, if they didn't do the proper requirements to get the collector's deed, then they're just out that money.
Yes.
In essence.
And we had, before I got here, Leah had names, one bidder,
Oh, that was
They
horrible.
lost,
$70,000.
they hired an attorney. Unfortunately, the attorney apparently didn't know what he was doing. And they lost
He says they
$70,000.
didn't know what they were doing.
So $70,000. So your money is at risk if you don't know what you're doing and you're an attorney who doesn't know what you're doing. You could again like they'll lose $70,000.
I've never felt more scared that an old man was going to punch me than when I looked at him and he was like, yeah, so we're here to get our deeds. And I was like, so about that.
They've done nothing. So I think we're just about out of time. And last question. Christian, any more questions? I thought you came over from
I
there.
answered all that.
Thank you for asking me questions.
Thank you very much. Come the fourth Monday of August. Thanks.